Alright you guys, in today's video I'm going to go over how to buy an old motorcycle and the things you should look for to not get screwed.
So before you leave your house, you're going to want these three main things. You're going to want a plug wrench with an extension and at least 3 different common size sockets for plugs. Next, you're going to want a multimeter to be able to read voltage coming off of the stator. And lastly, you're going to want a compression tester. With the compression tester, you're also going to want to invest in some of these adapter fittings because not all spark plugs are the same thread size. You don't want to end up going to the house, checking the compression or trying to check the compression and have the thread size be wrong on the standard adapter. You also don't want to be this guy showing up with his whole freaking toolbox. Just bring those 3 things so you can check the most important parts of the motorcycle to know that it's solid before you buy it.
And chances are, if you're like most people and you've been scrolling over Marketplace dreaming about this motorcycle that you want to get, you're going to be flooded with emotions, you're going to forget things, and you're not going to check it over as thoroughly as you should. And just remember, as the buyer, you have all the power in the world. The money hasn't left your wallet yet. So any edge you can pick up by picking out little things that are wrong or damaged or worn out, it's going to give you that edge you need to get it for a cheaper price. And before I even leave my house, I'm going to ask the seller 3 main questions. Is it titled in their name? And how many miles does it have? Is it the stock Speedo? Because chances are, if the Speedo's been changed, the miles are a mystery. But this is a huge edge and a strategy for getting it cheaper.
And I also want to really reinforce the fact that you check with the seller to make sure it was titled in their name. Because if it's not, it's called title hopping or title jumping, which is illegal in every state of the US. It's also very important, or a key thing, that lets you know if it was titled successfully in their name, chances are the engine number matches the VIN. Now, if you've been to the DMV and you've ran into this issue before, you know it sucks. It really, really sucks. Everybody's witchy at the DMV. I don't know what it is, but it's something you want to avoid at all costs. So chances are, if it's in their name and they didn't change the engine number is going to match the VIN.
Now, if you're like me, you want to be set up for success. You want to ask the seller anything you can before you leave the house to not waste not only their time, but your own time. Now, when you first arrive, obviously the first thing you're going to look at is the overall condition of the bike. Does it match the pictures that were displayed? And is it in good condition? Is there surface rust? Is there faded out plastics, brittle plastics, indicating that it was left outside, which may indicate electrical issues as well. But looking at this bike here,
the reasons I chose this one is because even after 40 plus years, I can still see the gold on the spoke nuts. The chrome is in good shape. The seals I replaced, but one thing you need to look for is oil around here to know if the seals are bad or not. Chances are, if it's an old bike, they are going to be bad. These are really easy to replace, but these are things you should be looking for. And since I'm here, I'm going to check the oil. Make sure that it's full and clean. And if it's a liquid cooled bike, you're going to be looking for things like milkiness or potential coolant in the oil. In this case, my oil is super clean and it's good to go. And the next most important thing to check is the electronics. So first I'm going to check the headlight, which powers on, which indicates that the key switch is also in good working order. I'm going to hit the brake lights, both foot and hand. And then I'm going to check the blinkers. And then a horn. And last but not least, the starter. Alright, so now that you know all the electrical is working, it's a step in the right direction. But we still haven't tested the most crucial part of the motorcycle, which is the charging system. Now, if the blinkers aren't working, the headlight's not working, the switch isn't working, it could be as simple as a battery being dead, but it could also be something more major. It could be bad grounds, corroded wires, bad connections, could be many things. It's a rabbit hole that you're diving down.
But typically it's probably going to be a bad ground or a low battery, but these are the things you want to keep in mind. Now, to check the charging system, it's a really simple procedure. You just need to find the battery. So in this case, it's on this side of the motorcycle, but most of these vintage bikes have side covers on both sides. The battery could be on either side, but typically it's on the right side. You just pop this cover off. The original covers just usually have rubber grommets. The cover just pops right off. You just need to get access to the positive and negative terminal to use your multimeter. So that's simple. I'll show you how to do that in a second. Now, once you got the side cover off, you'll just locate the positive terminal, which is red, and the negative terminal, which is black. So turn your multimeter. There's a large variety of these, but basically you just want to look for volts, DC. So in this case, I'm going to turn it to 20, just because it goes up to 20 volts. And I'm going to check the battery voltage. So in this case, just connect that to the red, connect that to the black. And right now, we're sitting at 12.73. So anything 11.5, 11.7 or so below, chances are the battery's going to be bad. But in this case, the battery's fully charged and in good shape. So to check the charging system, you're just going to want to take these two leads, put it onto the battery, and go ahead and start the bike with it on the same setting. So in this case, I'm getting about 13.7-ish volts. So anywhere from 13.7 to about 14.3 is about the range you want to see. But if you're seeing low voltage, lower than 12 or 12 volts, you're just getting the battery voltage, which means the charging system is not working. So this is the simple test that could potentially save you a ton of money on your purchase, because if the charging system is not working, it could be bad wires, bad grounds again, or chances are it's the regulator rectifier, and the more expensive thing is it could be your stator. So those are more tests you can go into, but when you're just checking it out and you want to buy this motorcycle, this test could potentially save you hundreds of dollars, because you're going to know right away if it's working or not and what you're getting into. It can also be used as a competitive edge in getting it for a cheaper price. Now, once you've checked out the electrical system, you're going to want to move on to the cylinder next to see the condition of the engine. So I've already went ahead and loosened this plug, but you're going to want to check these plugs before you do any tests. They usually indicate all kinds of issues: lean conditions, rich conditions, burning oil. There's different conditions you want to look for, but in this case, I'll try and get some more light here or for it to focus, but just a little bit golden brown, not a lot of carbon deposits, a good gap in between the electrode, so I can tell that it's running in good condition. But if this was full of oil, wet, or really black, chances are it's burning oil, which means the rings in the cylinder aren't sealing very well, and chances are that's going to show up on your compression test as well. But if it's white or really, really light, if they just changed their plugs, that's another thing. It's hard to get a feel for what's going on in the cylinder if they just replaced the plugs. But in this case, if it's really white and it's an older plug, chances are it's running lean. So now it's time for a compression test. So in this case, I needed an adapter because the thread size originally on the compression tester is the wrong size. So I'm going to go ahead and screw that in there. And now I'm just going to watch the gauge as I hit the starter. Just give it a few revolutions just to pump up the PSI and see what we're at. So you can see, I'm like, okay, it's 90 PSI. What's going on here? This thing is terrible. And this is another thing. Do your research. Find out what compression this bike should be at. But there's one thing, one step that I missed, and I've missed on other bikes, and I thought the engine was bad, but really it might have been good. So there's actually two things that I missed. One, the engine wasn't warm. If the engine's not warm, it didn't have a chance for the piston to expand and push the rings outward to seal on the cylinder. So it's very important that you at least warm it up for, say, a couple minutes to get those rings to expand and give you a true reading. But the next thing I missed is I didn't open the throttle. So on these old bikes, they have a butterfly in here which allows the air to flow.
And this is all diaphragm operated, this slide in here. So if there's no air getting in, it doesn't have a chance for this slide to come up. And if there's no air getting in the cylinder, there's no air coming into the line, giving you a false reading for compression. So it's very important that you open this throttle wide open, obviously with the key off, and then turn over to the engine to give you an accurate reading, and I'll show you the difference. So I actually meant to say leave the switch on, but the kill switch off, so that way you're not trying to start the other side of the engine when you're doing the compression test. But in this case, I'm gonna go ahead and open the throttle, give it a few revolutions, and show you the difference in PSI. So in this case, I'm getting about 145, almost 150 PSI. So that made a huge difference. We were seeing, what, 90 PSI before? Now we're seeing almost 150 PSI. That's a huge difference. So it's very important that you open the throttle when you check the compression on these old bikes, these diaphragm carbs. So now that you've done a thorough check of the bike, the engine checks out, good compression, charging system is working, you know you might have something good here. But you obviously want to take it for a ride. There's other things that could show up, bad bearings in the wheels, noises, chain slack, stuff like that, cable tension tight, throttle sticking, etc. So you're going to want to take it for a ride and see how this thing runs. Another thing you're going to want to check is the inside of this tank. A lot of these old bikes get moisture, water inside, and they rust out. In this case, my tank is really clean inside, but it's another thing you want to do. Just open the cap, use a flashlight on your phone, or bring a flashlight, shine in there, make sure it's in good shape. There might be a little bit of rust, but as long as you run a filter on the side, like this one here, just for good measure, you'll be just fine. So now when you first get on the bike, you're just going to check the suspension. Does it feel soft or does it feel stiff? Could indicate that there's oil missing from the forks, or that they need to be rebuilt, or the spring's really worn out in the back from a lot of miles. Just feel the front end. Is it loose? Is the front bearings loose or anything like that? Some weird noises. And then should be good to go. So now that you're on the bike and it's running, you're gonna want to test and see where the clutch engages. So go over here, put it in gear. Does it make any loud clicks or clunks? And then see where that thing lets out. Is it right away or is it far out? Could indicate that the clutch plates are bad. By now the bike should already be warmed up as well, so there shouldn't be any throttle response issues whatsoever. But let's get it into gear and let's test it out. So after taking it for a ride, what did you think? Was there clinks and clanks in the gearbox indicating bad gears or bad bearings? Did the clutch slip when you let it out or gave it a lot of throttle? How were the brakes? Did it stop good? So these are the things you want to kind of pick up on when you're riding it. Were there throttle response issues indicating a fuel delivery issue, or just bad performance overall? The engine didn't seem like it was running that well. So it's almost time for negotiation. I can tell you guys one thing. By now, after that seller sees you do all these checks, he's gonna be freaking out. He's gonna know that you're not messing around. You know exactly what's going on with this thing. So now you can ask the seller. Still thinking 1200? Yeah, I mean, I'd like to get 1200 for it. So if everything checked out, charging system is good, the bike runs good, suspension's solid, 1200 bucks might be a good deal. But on the other hand, if the charging system did not check out, the bike isn't charging, runs like crap, compression's bad, but my wallet might shut. So like I said too, if everything didn't check out, it's really poor condition, and the seller still wants a lot of money for it, I'd be running like this dog from a GoPro camera.
So now that you've handed the seller the cash and the deal is pretty much done, don't forget one key thing.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it. I'll
Fill
get
the title out, both his address, his name, his driver's license number, and yours. The little bit slip on the bottom of the title, that's the seller's to keep. That's for his records and his information for reporting it to the DMV that the item is sold. The rest is yours to keep.
Alright, you guys, this video is a wrap. Thanks for watching. Make sure you give it a like and subscribe to the channel. There's going to be more content like this. Just wanted to show you guys some really valuable tips on buying these old motorcycles, things to look out for, potentially save you hundreds of dollars and not get screwed. Thanks.
So for those of you who made it to the end of the video, thank you. I'm going to do a little bit of an outro, what this channel is going to be about. From everything to riding mini bike, more custom parts just like this Springer front end. Or maybe you're into vintage snowmobiles like me. Or maybe it's fixing things. Or whatever it may be, it might be something you'd like to see. But I do know one thing. This channel is going to be more than just having a good time. It's going to be about sharing valuable information too. So thank you to my current subscribers and future subscribers, because this journey is about to get a whole lot better.